What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Buck back with you. Buck, what is going on, man?
Not too much, DJ. It's a fun time of year. Like we're in the middle of the thing. We had the trade deadline and all that stuff. Like come and go. We're getting to the stretch of it. But one of the things that I want to ask you about, DJ, there is such a divide. I don't know if we've ever seen the league so
Yeah.
divided in terms of the teams that are performing well and
Oh,
the teams
man.
that are underperforming. Like the number of 2-7
Oh, it's
teams
ridiculous.
that we're
I'm gonna
seeing.
pull it
Like
up.
it is unbelievable to see the divide in a league that is built for everyone to finish 9-8. We're not seeing that, and I really can't understand why. Because I think the league has certainly good players and good coaches. I just don't understand why we're not seeing upsets and why we're seeing such the difference between the good teams and the bad teams.
So right now, 2-7 teams: New England, Jacksonville, New Orleans, Carolina, Cleveland, Vegas, and the Giants. Followed by 2-6 teams: Miami and Tennessee. Like, goodness gracious, we've got 9 teams that with 2 wins right now. 9. Like, I don't remember ever seeing anything like this.
No, it's never been that. Normally, like the league is built to have everyone right around the center line, but we're not seeing that now. I will say this, and we talk about it. We always talk in terms of like players and personnel and those things. DJ, I've never seen so many games like mismanaged
Yeah.
from a situational awareness standpoint, from a when to go for two, when not to go for two, when to go for it on fourth down. Teams that are just leaving points on the field by not kicking like gimme field goals. Um, I do wonder if we went so far in the other direction with whether you call it analytics or I would say high risk approaches that we're seeing more teams just lose games because they're not properly executing things that were very fundamental when it came from a management standpoint.
Well, that's been my answer, as someone who calls Charger games when asked what the biggest difference is with that team. And I've said they're not giving anything away. And just by, and I think that goes back to Parcells, right? His old idea is more games are lost than won. Like you don't give games away. You don't give games away. You'll go to the playoffs every year. Just take care of business. Don't blow coverages. Don't have clean run throughs from your offensive line where you're not picking things up. If you lose games based off physically losing games, in other words, we couldn't block them. Those things we couldn't cover them. We couldn't separate like the one-on-one battles. We just didn't win the one-on-one battles. But that's such a small part of the games. The majority of them are lost by people blowing coverages, blowing protections, making poor decisions as a quarterback, gambling on defense. Like that's how all the regular season is every single week.
Yeah, it is funny how that is. And you talked about it. And Bill Parcells had talked about it. I played for a coach in Marty Schottenheimer who believed more games are lost than won if you can just take care of the little things, turnovers, penalties, big plays allowed, kicking game errors. If you just kind of own those areas where you do the simple tasks better than the other opponent, you can win. And you can win a lot. Now you have to do a little more to win in the postseason. But in regular season play, it really comes down to not giving games away. And I'm just amazed at how many teams are willingly giving games away in the hope of getting a big return on their investment when it comes to their daring ways.
And I will say this. I think there's something. If you look at some of these teams that have had turnarounds, like Washington's a great example, right? And Jaden Daniels rightfully gets a lot of that credit. He's been unbelievable. He's going to be a Pro Bowler year one. He's been awesome. 3 turnovers. He's played clean. He's been great. Dan Quinn gets a lot of credit as well because of the job he's done getting these guys organized. One of the things, this has been a theme for us for a couple years now, maybe 2 years. I thought we kind of stumbled onto this of all the things that you're after. And in Baltimore, we had the STI, speed, toughness, instincts. And it was like, okay, if you're trying to find a competitive advantage in this league, and it's a league that's built for parity, it's not baseball, where you have teams with $100 million more spent than others. This league is built for everything to be perfectly equal. Everybody should be 500. Yep. That's the way the rules are. So it's a league in the margins. How can I find a difference in the margins? So, in other words, if we don't want to be in a crowded store, if you're in this store and everybody's looking for speed, everybody's looking for size, all those things. I honestly think Washington is a great example of smart football players. That is how you win in the margins. Look at all the guys they brought in this offseason. All of them. I was around Austin Eckler. He's one of the smartest football players I've ever talked to. And that's not just what he does on the field. That's him in the room sharing that wisdom with the rest of their guys. Ertz, incredibly smart. That gets spread there. You think about Bobby Wagner going over there, how intelligent he was. Like, they have all these different pieces on this team they brought in. They brought in a lot of smart guys, Buck.
Let's go back to when New England was playing at their best. Going all the way back, I remember working for the Carolina Panthers, and at the time we played Super Bowl 38. We played the Patriots, but in the Final Four, those teams were the ones who had the most college graduates on their team. So you think about the model that New England had, where they always had a preference for high IQ, smart players and those things. And with intelligence, they also wanted maturity. When you look at the Washington Commanders and what Dan Quinn has intentionally done, not only did he bring in players that he knew and had familiarity with, they're an older team, a mature team. You don't see some of the silliness from that team that you see from other teams. And then let's talk about their quarterback and the reports coming out about him showing up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, being the first one in, the last one out, how Bobby Wagner and some of the teammates are amazed that they walk in the facility. He's already fully lathered up, watched the film, done all these other things. DJ, there is something to not only the intelligence, but the maturity that you're looking for when it comes to putting together your team and looking for the guys that are the right fits for your ball club.
Yeah, I think there's something to that, man. And again, teams that don't blow coverages, don't blow protections, tend to have smarter teams, that don't make those mistakes. There was a specific play in the Chargers game this last week, watching them against Cleveland. And the Chargers up by maybe a score or two, and there's a throw in the middle of the field. And I believe it was Derwin. It was either Derwin or Aloy Gilman, where Jameis kind of telegraphed it, and you could have jumped it, and maybe you make a play on the ball. But knowing kind of where they were in the game and knowing the struggles the Browns had offensively, I thought it was pretty aware of, like, you know what? I'm going to secure the tackle. I'm not going to fly by, take a chance that this, I miss a tackle and this goes for a touchdown, a long gain, and kind of bring some life into a dead stadium. Like, just a little thing like that. It seems insignificant at the time, but that's awareness. That's, intelligence and awareness kind of all wrapped up together as one.
100%. I mean, there's so much of what you're looking for is understanding time, score, situation. What do I need to do in this moment? Where are we at? Do we have control of the game? If we have control of the game, then look, I can err on the side of caution just to make sure that we don't give it away. I think it's interesting when you talk about, like, your experience with the Chargers and watching Harbaugh and how Harbaugh has quickly turned the Chargers around just because he's not giving games away. And it's one of those things that sometimes, DJ, it doesn't show up in the box scores. It doesn't earn you the highlights on TV where people talk about the bells and whistles and all the creative stuff that you're doing. But there's some coaches that just understand how to win games and win games in those moments. And going back to the Monday night game with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I say this, and I don't want to be disrespectful to the Kansas City Chiefs, but the Kansas City Chiefs have become the New England Patriots.
Oh, we've been saying that for a while. That's exactly who they are. The early Patriots, not the Randy Moss Patriots.
Like, they've cracked the code in terms of winning. That you can look at the game, and DJ, I'm watching the game, and I'm like, this is great, but Kansas City's going to find a way to win. Like, they're going to win. Like, they get the ball first. Whatever they're going to make the plays that need to be made. And the scary thing about them doing it, Patrick Mahomes figuring out how to win at an early age, that is scary in terms of just learning how to win games and manage games and do those things. And I think it also shows that an old dog can learn new tricks. Because in Philadelphia, Andy Reid was always derided for
he wanted the stats and all that stuff. He didn't care about that anymore.
Win games. And now he's like, yeah, I don't care. I just want to win the game. Like, it doesn't matter how we do it. I just want to win the game. There's something to be said for, you win more by making sure that you master the art of not losing games.
Yeah, I mean, even just watching that team in a 2-minute drill, I mean, there's zero greed involved with them. You know what? We've got time. Well, we'll check it down to the back 3 times. I'll take off and run. I'll find a little outlet in the flat. Like, it's just so methodical and so in the moment and not trying to make things bigger than they are. And they're going to beat. I mean, I saw them in the Charger game. I think it was 17-10. The Chiefs won that game. Whatever the hurdle is, we'll just get over the hurdle. We don't need to be anything, special. We're not trying to score 50 points and break records. We're just trying to win every game that we can. And that requires, making the 5 plays that you need to make offensively and accepting the presents that are going to be given to you defensively. And they do that.
Just waiting for it. I'm just going to wait for the other team to implode. And
Yeah.
it's a denominator. The great teams, they wait for the other team to implode. They're consistent. They're reliable. They know exactly what they're going to do. And they're not going to give away anything. And if you are able to legitimately master that art as a team, man, it's just going to give you an opportunity to win so many games. And I say this, and I've always said this about Coach Schottenheimer when he's there. Like, Coach Schottenheimer showed me and showed us the recipe to always get to 11 or 12 wins. Like, he legitimately said, like, hey, guys, if we don't turn it over, if you take care of the ball, you punt when you're supposed to punt, you cover punch, you do all this stuff, eliminate the penalties, make sure we get lined up, right? Guys, we're going to win 10 or 11 games every year, and that's going to get you into the playoffs. And, DJ, we know it now. The magic number in this league is 10. You win 10 games in this league, you can write your ticket to the postseason.
Yeah. No, it's very attainable when you look at the bottom half of this league. Beat up on those teams. Don't lose bad teams. You'll get to the playoffs. Just beat the bad teams. That should be enough. Split even a little bit under 500 with the good teams. Beat the bad teams. You'll be in the postseason. There's enough bad teams to go around. Let's take a quick break, Buck. We come back. We'll get into a little hot or not. We'll get some. We'll go on the positive side. We'll get to some individuals that are hot right now. Right after this. All right, Buck, it's time for Hot or Not, brought to you by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. Normally we do this with players, and we're going to get some players that are playing really well right now. But I want to get to a coach first of all. Anybody hotter than Ben Johnson?
No. I'm going to say right now, the hottest coaching staff in football right now would be the Detroit Lions. And it's not just because of the brilliant X's and O's that we're seeing on both sides of the ball. Everyone is buying into the culture thing that has been created in Detroit. You and I have talked, and I've always been a believer that the way that your team plays has to be a reflection of the city that you represent. Detroit is a tough, grizzled city. The city gets behind a team that is tough, grizzled, that represents them, blue collar in their approach. Jared Goff, their star players. You look at them, you never think that a kid from Marin County would be a blue collar guy, but he has certainly become that given all the adversity that he's had to navigate. So when I look at the way the team is constructed, we talked about Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell on a previous podcast, but look, Ben Johnson and the coaching staff, they have been able to take the pieces of the puzzle and really put together, I would say, the perfect team for the National Football League. I repeat this phrase often when I talk about the Lions. They can win with force or finesse. They have the ability to, when we need to get rugged and put on the big boy pads and run it at you, we can run it right at you and run it down your throat. Why? Big physical offensive line that's one of the best in the league. 2 running backs that could look, either one of them can be number 1 running backs for a respective team. So they can line up and play old school smash mouth football. But on the perimeter, quarterback that is good and efficient, playmakers on the outside, Amara St. Brown, Jameson Williams, some of the other weapons that they have. I mean, DJ, there's not a glaring weakness on this offense. They are just well put together, and more teams should follow that building model when building an offense. I want to be able to do everything, and then I'll let the circumstances dictate how we play each week.
And I think offensive line is the key to being able to do all those things. If you have a stud offensive line, you can run it down people's throats. You can be involved in screen game and getting out in the perimeter because you're athletic up front. You can pass protect if you need to throw it 45 times. That's the key to unlock everything. And I think that's what Brad Holmes has done in Detroit. They've done a great job of assembling a really, really good offensive line. And now the creativity of the offensive coordinator. Your playbook doesn't just grow because of the quarterback. It grows because of the offensive line and what that allows you to do. And so it's a great example of building it the right way and then having coaches that can pay that off. We were talking about this earlier, though, off the air. I mean, at some point in time, are we going to see somebody like a Ben Johnson who's already turned down head coaching jobs and just say, hey, whatever the going rate is for head coaches right now, I think I've proven myself that I'm valuable enough to, even as a coordinator, as the number 2 underneath Dan Campbell, that why would you not invest head coach money in him and keep him and say, this is all the stuff you love. It's you get to call plays, lead a room. You don't have to deal with any of the other nonsense. You don't have to go to an organization and hope and pray that the right quarterback falls to you, that your owner is on board with your plan. There's so many unknowns. Like, I don't know if there's a head coach on sure footing than Dan Campbell is right now. So you've got job security. And I would say, look what you're paying, look what a guard is making in this league. I could make a strong argument that Ben Johnson is worth more for what he provides for the Detroit Lions. Why would you not just pay him head coach's money and say, well, they don't need to be a head coach. Just stay right here.
Yeah, and if you're Ben Johnson, I think you have to look at the landscape and look at how quickly they're turning over head coaches, right? Look at how quickly this thing is ending. Dennis Allen gets 2.5 years. You think about some of the other coaches who are on these short-term things. Robert Saleh got, 3 years, 3+ years? I mean,
yeah.
What do you want to jump into? And if I am him, I'm looking at the landscape of the quarterbacks. I'm looking at what's coming in the draft. And if I can't get to one of those high-end guys, why am I leaving?
Yeah.
Because if you don't get a quarterback that first time through, it's a wrap. So if I'm Ben Johnson, if I'm the Detroit Lions, I am committed to making sure that I retain him. Because one of the biggest things that we've always talked about, whether it's an offensive-minded or a defensive-minded head coach, you wanted the continuity and the consistency of the offense being able to stay the same. If I'm Detroit and understanding how valuable it is to make sure that Jared Goff is comfortable, I'll overpay for the coordinator. Because you're right. When you start factoring in the money that we're paying for players,
not going to hit your salary cap. It's just an expense.
$10 million.
Yeah. Go sell a couple more ads in the stadium. You know what I mean? It just seems like a no-brainer, man. A couple other people that have been hot, by the way. Joe Burrow coming off a 5-touchdown game in their win over the Raiders. Mahomes, as he does, he's starting to turn it up a little bit here. 3 touchdowns game-winning drive over the Bucs. Lamar Jackson, 3 more touchdowns for him and a win over the Broncos. And Josh Allen, big divisional win for them against the Miami Dolphins. The long field goal to win it, but he had 3 touchdowns in that ball game as well. So plenty of guys playing really good football right now.
Look, man, here's what I like about Joe Burrow. And it's funny because Joe Burrow is so like prickly Joe Burrow is the best Joe Burrow. Like Joe Burrow. And they have a big game coming up Thursday against the Baltimore Ravens, where if they're able to win it, it really puts them back in the mix in terms of some of their goals or whatever. But Joe Burrow has always been at his best when look backed in the corner and they just say, here's the ball.
Yeah, go win us games.
And he does it again. So I love what Joe Burrow is doing. The other part of it, because you mentioned Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills and how the Buffalo Bills are trending. DJ, it's funny because the Buffalo Bills got knocked off and it kind of threw them off their stride. And I wondered at a point when they lose, like, man, can you win without a true number one or whatever? They go and get Amari Cooper, but really since they acquired Amari Cooper, he hasn't really played as that number one role, injuries and those things. They're more dangerous now than they have been in the past. I think they have a clear view of who they are. They've remade themselves in a blue-collar fashion, which makes them, I think, a more difficult team to defeat and a team that's better served to kind of take on some of the top teams in the AFC.
Yeah, no, they're in a really good spot right now, especially in that conference. That was this week's Hot or Not segment, brought to you by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. Store more and do more with your data. Try them for free at wasabi.com. All right, Buck, that's it for us today. Anything else you want to throw out there before we get out of here?
Man, look, so we talked about Ben Johnson. I would say Aaron Glenn's name is going to pop up. We talked about tying him to potentially New Orleans and some stuff. There's a lot of good coaching going on for some teams and some bad coaching going on elsewhere. It'll be interesting as we continue to see those 2-7 teams, and if they get better or worse, are we going to see more guys get issued pink slips, even though we don't like that? I just wonder how patient will some of these owners be when their teams dealing with these upside down records.
Yeah, well, we'll keep an eye on that here over the next few weeks. All right, this has been a fun one today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We will be back again. We've got 5 episodes a week coming your way. Hope you guys are having a good football season, better than our 2 alma maters. Another topic for another day. I'm hoping we're going to finish strong there. Man, my son, by the way, is I was, Padres don't end well. At least Chargers are playing well for me selfishly on that front. But I was so excited for Baylor basketball, Buck. Carolina got a win the other night. Baylor opens up against Gonzaga and got their doors blown off.
That's all right. Sometimes it's the best thing. A little opening loss, bring everybody back down to earth, kind of reset. Scott Drew typically does a really good job. They'll figure it out. They'll be one of those teams that
I'm a Scott Drew guy. They got to play some defense. All right. That's going to do it for us today. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.